I come from a couple of decades of experience making interactive stuff. So think websites, apps, games, 2D things. And I was thinking that that experience was going to give me a real leg up in spatial design. But what I found is that I've really had to reorient my entire framework from thinking in a 2D way to a 3D way. And that's what this video hopes to do for you, is to give you the ability to think spatially so that you can avoid some of the pitfalls and errors that I made along the way. You have less control in augmented reality because obviously you're fundamentally combining the real world and the virtual world, and you don't have any control over the real world. So the person who is experiencing your project could be in a library or a loud music venue or a park. I think that in order to work spatially, you really have to move to a mindset of adaptability, because things are going to change. If you're new here, I'm Heather. I am an immersive artist and maker of all sorts of things, and this is another episode of my AR Creator course where I am leading you through all of the things that I have learned over the years as an augmented reality artist. I'm going to be sharing what I've learned here on YouTube and Substack. The highlights will be here, and if you want the full nitty-gritty, check out my Substack, which links are below. So first off, let's talk about the shift. You really have to stop thinking about it as a picture and more as a place. You're designing a space to inhabit for a body, which is also important. You can't really think your way through this. You actually have to feel it with your own body, in my experience. This is why I'm an advocate for early prototyping. This is a way of basically using really primitive shapes to make your overall experience and then try it with your physical body, because you're always going to have insights from doing that. It's really helped steer my ship multiple times, like every time, actually. Augmented reality is always attached to something, and there's three primary categories of that. There's content that follows you as you move around the space. There's content that is attached to a surface, so the real world that stays put as you walk around. And there's also content that can be attached to a real world object. The device recognizes it and then attaches the AR content to it. For example, a coffee cup. Obviously, in spatial experiences, you have space, and you can really use depth as a design tool. I typically like to divide this into two loops that sort of surround the user. One is the near field. This is essentially where your body lives. It's roughly like arm's length, where a person's hands can actually touch, grab, press. For embodied direct interaction, this is a great space to design in. The next circle is much bigger, and this is the far field. These are the elements that are further away from the user. And again, I think in circles that are sort of surrounding the participant. This is going to be used for larger content, background details, world building stuff to kind of make people feel integrated into the virtual content of your experience. They're things that you can take in with your eyes, but you're not necessarily reaching for to directly interact with. One quick note, which you might not think about, but like the closer an object is to a participant, the larger it's going to be within their field of view. So you're going to need to adjust scale based on how near or far it is from the person. And to find those sizes, often, again, you really need to try it with your own body. Speaking of field of view, let's talk about it. FOV, which is the shorthand acronym for it. Essentially, all that it is it's a window. They could have called it, window of vision, essentially. But like, what it is it's where your virtual content can exist. If it's outside the window, people simply can't see it. So on glasses, this is a hardware limitation. It's like where the display is able to show that virtual overlay on the physical world. Think of it as like, ski goggles or something. You can only see like a certain amount of virtual content, and you really need to design for that. On mobile, the frame is the phone, right? It's like the window that you're looking through. So that is the limit. So an early mistake that I made when I was creating projects was that I sprinkled things all around the user, and half of it went undiscovered. What I've learned is that it's great for world building to completely immerse the user in all sorts of augmented details. But if you want them to discover it, you really have to earn that look. Okay, so there's a few techniques that you can use to do this. First is spatial sound. If you have a sound effect, like that crow, if you could hear it, then it's going to make someone look in that direction. Another thing that you can use is breadcrumb trails. These are like visual breadcrumbs. This could be a trail of smaller elements that kind of leads the eye to whatever you're hoping the person actually looks at. That's one way of doing it. And another technique that's very usable is movement. So for example, if you had a butterfly that fluttered off, it would actually carry the person's attention to the next piece of the virtual scene. Often a combination of all of these techniques is really the way to go, because it's going to ensure that someone's going to look where you want them to look. Okay, let's talk about designing for comfort, because comfort is queen. Uncomfortable augmented reality will simply get abandoned. Glasses get taken off, the phone goes back in the pocket, nobody wants to use it, I promise. With glasses, an important thing to remember is that necks move side to side really well, but not so much up and down, so try to keep your content off the ceiling. That's a really easy way of tiring people out. Also, don't ping pong people's vision between near and far field like too rapidly. You can do a little bit of it, but just be aware that it's going to take some eye adjustment and some orientation adjustment for people as they're looking at close elements and further away elements. Also, don't create stuff that's like right up on somebody. Just like the regular world, like personal space is important, and making somebody feel like really claustrophobic is a great way of turning them off. Give people some space. When designing for mobile, you have to really consider that there's always at least one arm involved, right? So they really only have one hand that's free to do other stuff. And also holding a phone for a really long time is a workout. You're really gonna wanna create shorter sessions. I really recommend this for augmented reality just generally. I feel like short and sweet does a much better job than long experiences. People just really don't have the attention span to take in the real world and the virtual simultaneously for too long. Also, when you're using phones, try to design for like gentle movement. If you require people to like move really quickly to keep track of like a virtual element, they're totally gonna lose it like very, very quickly and become very disoriented. Give people some time to orient as they're moving through an experience physically. Keep in mind that bodies are not one size, so you really need to let content adapt, because accessibility always wins. Again, I'm gonna harp on this, but really the way to understand if an experience is comfortable is to try it with your own body. And actually get other people with other bodies to try it as well, because everybody's gonna have a different experience, and you're gonna discover things that need to be either adapted or to take into account the different types of participants and their different styles of using things. As I mentioned before, edit ruthlessly. Like really, really whittle down your experiences, both in terms of like content and duration and just the overall concept. A simple distilled idea will translate so much more effectively to augmented reality than something that's like convoluted or complex. Like a tight, punchy experience, hands down, beats anything with like sprawl. And that's it. If you would like more information or to see the other episodes, check out my Substack. It is linked below. Hopefully you got something from this. If so, like, subscribe, boop the bell, do all the things that you need to do. I really do appreciate it. It helps this channel a lot, and it helps me make more videos just like this. So until next time, happy making.